Hello and welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley. It is international break week, so we get to watch the incredible fixtures such as England versus Andorra. And normally, as a Charlton fan, would be a time where we would probably still have a game on when we're in League One.
Well, to be fair, there was a few, weren't there, where we had a few Jamaicans, even last season where we got called off. But usually the league would be carrying on, but
we have now gone on to bigger and better things.
We have.
And we will not be playing this week. So we thought with the international break, it would be a really good opportunity to maybe have a look over. I think we're going to have a quick chat just about the league, albeit only after 4 games.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a discussion about the 3 teams that have come up from League One, and also the 3 teams that have been relegated from the Premier League. Just to see where maybe how teams are doing. Are they doing as expected? Maybe worse. I think probably it's quite
it's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. When you look at those sides that come down, you always expect those clubs to be right back up there straight away.
I think nowadays especially.
Yeah, with the money as well involved. But obviously, again, you do find nowadays those clubs are getting poached for their better players. As soon as they go down, they do get raided. So we'll have a look over that, and I think it's quite interesting already. Even though it's only 4 games in, you're starting to see a little bit of a pattern with certain clubs, certain ones that we were expecting to see down the bottom, and others we definitely weren't. So.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
So I think before we get into kind of the promoted, relegated sides, 4 games into the season now. What's your thoughts kind of looking over the table? I think there's definitely some surprises in there.
Yeah, so I think we did our prediction, obviously, for the full table at the beginning of the season. Middlesbrough obviously top, and they've won all 4 of their opening games. Now, Rob Edwards has obviously come in as a brand new manager at the club, and we weren't quite sure how he would sort of start off, but obviously he's hit the ground running.
He was my biggest concern.
Yeah, I remember you saying you weren't totally convinced on him, but I actually was, and that's why I put him in the top 6. I think I ended up putting him. But my reasoning behind that was he always had Luton playing a really good style of football, and it seems as if he's transitioned that across quite quickly at Middlesbrough. And Middlesbrough are a good-sized club. They got a good fan base. They got they're a good club, to be fair, with good history, and he's got good players there as well. So with that, and obviously then him in charge, he's already proven to be a really good appointment. Now, obviously, bear in mind it's 4 games, so things can change. But that's a great start, and their fans will be delighted, to be fair.
No, I'd say so. And I think when we probably looked at the table as well, and I think most football fans had a club in Sheffield at the bottom of the table, but I'm not sure.
The red side.
Yeah, many would have been predicting the red side, which I think has probably been the biggest surprise so far.
100%. I mean, they are a club that obviously have. They didn't come down last year, did they?
No.
They were,
just missed out. They obviously
that's right.
Playoff final.
Yeah. So they are a club that obviously have already had a good season last year, right up at the top. They did get rid of Wilder, which was controversial, I would say, at the time.
So.
Yeah, I mean, some of their fans were definitely disappointed to see him go. He's a Sheffield fan as well, which was always sort of a big draw. But Sellers has obviously come in, and he's not started. Well, he's lost every single game, which is not a good start whatsoever. And I've seen videos online already of him going over to the fans and them giving him some short threats.
It has that kind of. Yeah. It's not going to take long for it to be toxic, and I think it probably is already teetering that way.
Well, I read as well the other day, I think it was yesterday, I was reading online, Danny Roll's already apparently getting lined up for his replacement. So you can imagine if they lose a couple more, I haven't looked at what fixtures they've got coming up, but if they even draw a couple more, they're still going to be right down the bottom, and that puts a hell of a lot of pressure on for the rest of the season. And if you start that slowly to recover and get back up to the top, is bloody tough in the Championship.
Yeah.
So that's one that no one saw coming.
No.
Really surprised to see them right down the bottom. And actually Sheffield Wednesday are above them. So didn't.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. Sheffield Wednesday aren't doing well, as expected. But I think that was definitely one. And look, I think it always caveats with we're 4 games into the season, and I think that will come on to the discussions we have around, especially relegated sides. I think looking over the table, I think the main thing I've probably taken from the 4 games, and as kind of Charlton fan, obviously, I think there is a lot of just unpredictability in the league, and I think it is going to be a league this year where you might find it's a pretty low bar in regards to playoffs. For example, maybe the point tally might be a bit off because I think there's just going to be points being taken left, right, and centre off teams.
It's already it always is. Sorry, a really competitive league, but you tend to have a couple of teams that run away with it at the top, maybe the top 2, and then the rest is always very close. I think you're already seeing it shaping up as this could be a bit of one of those seasons where if anyone hits a good run of form, that's going to really boost you back up the league, and it will be really competitive, I think, this year.
And is it finally the year for Stoke City?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's a few of those clubs, though, that sit in the middle of the table that if they have, like I say, if they get a good run of fixtures, a good run of results, this year in particular feels like one of those years where you could see a few teams that maybe unexpectedly are higher up the league than you think.
Yeah, I think especially for the playoffs, I think there's such a choice of teams that, as you say, it's more how their seasons pan out.
Yeah.
I think there is a few spaces in there that are so much for the taking, and there's teams you would maybe expect to be sitting in there, but I don't think this season we're necessarily going to see that, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a more varied kind of finish too, and there will potentially be some surprises that do sit in the playoffs at the end of the year.
100%.
So, so I think let's get into the main kind of crux of the video then. So, we'll start off on the relegated sides from last year. So obviously we had Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton, in that order. So let's start off with Leicester. So far this season, we've got a 2-1 opening win against Sheffield Wednesday, 2-1 loss to Preston, a 1-0 win against Charlton, and a 2-0 win against Birmingham. What's your kind of initial thoughts?
Well, 3 wins out of 4, they're probably going to be pretty pleased with that, I would say. Leicester are a club that will expect to be right back up at the top of the league, and they have a big budget in terms of the players that they've been able to keep hold of. Obviously the window's shut now, managed to keep hold of a few, Mavididi, Atawu. Those are key players for them that will be very important in this season coming up. But yeah, 3 wins out of 4, you're gonna take that, I think.
I think 100%. I don't think they've been at their absolute best. I mean, you look at the opening day, Sheffield Wednesday. I think most people thought that was going to be really kind of a whitewash for them, and I don't think it was. And you look at obviously the Charlton game. We can go over that any time.
Yeah.
And with that game, I think it was a moment of magic. But if you're winning games when you're not playing well, that to me would maybe show the signs of a team that aren't going to do pretty well.
And that is exactly the thing I was just about to say, is if you're a team that is able to grind wins out even when you're not at your best, and they had a shake-up of players, they lost quite a few players, which is always naturally going to happen when you come down because you've got higher quality players that will get picked off by other clubs. But they've kept a few really good quality players in there, as well as mixing in a few young players that have come through their ranks. They got that Lewis Page, I think his name's Lewis Page,
and Monga.
And Monga, who both of those two, 16 and 17, which is outrageous. And they are already looking like really quality players for that level.
And arguably, if they are looking like that kind of real elite talent, it's probably pretty good for Leicester as well for them to be in the Championship, to have that seat.
They're not
really. Would they be there if it was Premier League? Probably not. Albeit, I'm sure they'd be showing signs of kind of pushing into the team, maybe. But I think maybe that could sit quite well for them. The fact they've got those players.
We've not heard much more about the point, because they were rumoured to have a points deduction.
I think it's still looming over. It's just gone. It's gone quiet. But as we know with these things, that could change any moment. And I think that's the thing that would maybe concern me the most to them, is that is looming over. Albeit, obviously, if they can, I mean, it depends on what it is, isn't it?
Well, also if they points, exactly. And if they, I heard rumours of 9 points, but even if they got 9 points, if they've started this well, that's going to stand them in good stead. Even if they're up at the top and they get that deduction, they're still going to be up there. So yeah, it's like we said throughout the video, it is early days, but they will be really pleased with that start. They're sitting in 4th, so they're right up there. And I don't think any teams apart from Middlesbrough, Stoke have started really well as well.
Yeah, they've got some good results.
But apart from those sort of teams right up at the top that have either won all 4 games or have won 3 of 4, they're in that bracket. So they're not going to be arguing about that, are they?
You're not going to be unhappy.
You're going to be very pleased with that. We did pick out for each of the teams. What we're going to do is just run through the 3 highest market value players. So that will just give us an indicator of sort of the squad values, but also the quality of the players that they have. So for Leicester, they got Wout Face. I think that's how you say it.
We'll have to get one of those Premier League.
Yeah. Wout Face, valued at 15 million. Victor Christensen, who's a Danish, I think it might be right back. He's one of the defenders. Another 15 million player. And Boubakary Soumaré, who is 14 million. So that's just 3 of their top players.
I think I would have been picking easier to pronounce.
Yeah. Well, I had no choice. It's the top 3. But the squad value of Leicester sits at £163 million. So that's the sort of bracket you're looking at when you come looking at teams that have come down from the Prem. The value of their squads are still really, really high. And that's probably the difference between us.
I think that's when you go through, and especially as we go through these teams, I think there's some quite interesting ones when it comes to squad value, especially as some of the teams that have come up. But I think if you look through the league, the kind of disparity with some teams in comparison to that, it does show the insane amount of wealth.
What I'd love to see actually is like at the end of the season, you could probably do it on last season to be fair, and it would probably show you a good idea of where people are sat. The squad value versus their league position at the end of the season, because there must be a correlation between it. Because
100%.
There's a big, from probably you could say the top 6 to 8 teams, that chunk, and then the rest of the league, there's probably quite a disparity, I would say.
But that's also why when a team like that come down, the realistic side is they have got these kind of real quality players, and I think there's why such a desperate need to bounce back pretty quickly as well.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of these teams lose very high value players. But realistically, they do still
money
maintain
back into the club.
Well, it does, but they also maintain an extremely strong side. But we've seen examples of it over the years. Probably most likely at the moment, like a team like Norwich, maybe. Obviously, they pumped a bit more money in. But I think teams like that, you can see that if you do, after a few years, retain your position in the Championship, it can quite easily then start getting stuck in that cycle.
There's quite a few, and actually Middlesbrough, funny enough, sit in that bracket. They've been in the Championship for quite a while, so that's why their quick start this season is going to be really important, actually, I think. And then the other thing we were just going to run through as well was just highlight a few of the players to watch for each club. What I had written down for Leicester were the 2 young boys, so Page, Monga. Both those 2 at that age to be playing at that level and actually standing out as high performers.
If you're that age playing for a team that's just been relegated from the Prem, who arguably, if they wanted to, I know with Leicester maybe not as much because there is all this concern over spending in the background, but I think if you're starting and playing for a team at that age, you're
going to be a good player in the future.
There's something special at this age that.
I mean, Charlton have had in the past. We've had a few that have sort of broken into the team.
Shelby was there.
Conser was pretty young when he came into the first team, but that was still at a lower level. I mean, Shelby was Championship, to be fair. But when a player is getting into the first team at that age, they're going to be a real talent in the future. So yeah, Leicester, I'd say, started really strongly, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they can keep that up. I think they will.
And I think probably of the 3 teams, they're probably sitting where you'd expect
to see them.
Team who have just come down to be. I think if we move on now to the next team, Ipswich, who I think for most people that was probably the team that who I had predicted to win the league. I still think they will. I think we are very early on. But opening fixtures, looking at 1-1 draw with Birmingham, 1-1 draw with Southampton. 1-0 loss to Preston, and a 2-2 draw with Derby. So
Mixed bag, that, isn't it?
yeah, well, I'd say it sits on the mixed bag to
Not
poor,
great.
to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
I think
The fans won't be happy with that start.
no, and I think a 1-1 draw with Southampton. Okay, look, they're as teams go, obviously playing Birmingham with kind of that first game back. Look, they haven't had the easiest of starts, but I think like a 1-0 loss to Preston, for example, they're the kind of games that realistically will be disappointing. And I think out of the three teams as well, one of the things I was most confident about with Ipswich was McKenna and the fact they haven't got the new manager, who it seems like this year 90% of teams have got a new manager. And I think teams who have got established managers who know kind of the system already and aren't necessarily learning that side should maybe be hitting the ground running. And I think it's interesting that realistically they're sitting in 20th.
Well, so with McKenna as well. So he got them out of League One, didn't he? I'm sure. Yeah, League One, then Championship, obviously into the Prem, got them relegated from the Prem. But because he's been there for a period of time, like you said, he's had enough time to really like stamp his authority on the club. And he was one that really excelled in the Championship, especially last time round. So you just naturally you assume that this season they're going to be really dominant in the league. Now, obviously, again, it's the first 4 games, but we watched that Birmingham opener, and I know the opening game again is a bit of a strange one because it's the first game of the season. They weren't
poor.
great.
They were poor, and they were lucky.
Ended up scraping in the end with a
very
late penalty. So you could argue that and then results, I mean, losing to Preston, who Preston I did not have anywhere near going up towards the top end, albeit they've had some really good results to start the season. Southampton, as you say, is a tough game. Both those clubs are going to be right up the top. So again, draw you take, I think. And then drawing to Derby, who again, Derby aren't a team I have high up the division this season.
See, that's where we did. I do with Derby, but I think that they have.
You rate them higher than I do, but
I think they've had a very good window, and I think they'll come into it as the season goes along. At the moment, I think they've signed a lot of players.
But even Ipswich, so we said they scraped it late on against Birmingham, but I'm pretty sure they scored a really late goal in the Derby game to equalise. So they're only just scraping draws at the moment.
Yeah,
so
it could be looking a lot worse.
Yeah, it could be worse. We said they haven't started great, but it could be worse. And so they are really that international break maybe give them a chance to reset, and they'll start picking up some points. But
do you also think and I think this maybe comes into all 3 teams that come down as well, do you think maybe coming down from the Prem there is a bit of a circus in the first month because you have got so many players who are rumoured to be going elsewhere? There's a little bit of a disjointed start because you can't really commit to maybe that person being your first team player because they might get sold. I think maybe after the international break, what you've got now is the window has now closed, and who's staying is at 100%. Least there till January. Does that then set a confidence and maybe a reset on those teams who have come down the season? And that chaos maybe is what causes, obviously, even, as I say, Leicester, but all 3 of them have had a bit of a chaotic start.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that August period, you're in a transfer window still open. That last day, you always get a bit of movement, especially in those types of clubs. I use Leicester as an example, actually. Mavididi wasn't in the squad for the Charlton game. He is now confirmed staying, I'm 99% sure, at Leicester. So therefore, they know he's going to be there for a period of time now in the Championship, and they can sort of keep him in the squad. So yes, it has a big impact, and the managers aren't 100% sure on who's going to be there, who's not. By the end, once the window's shut, then they've got a much better feel for it, and I think that will have a big indicator then on the games to come. They've obviously got the international break. They come back, they know what squad they've got, and I think that really helps them to then have a clearer picture on how they can structure the team going forward. So 100%. Those 3 that come down, especially, that impacts them the most, I
think it impacts them the most because they've got a lot of players that are sniffed around.
The high value players.
Yeah. Well, you look at
quality players.
Southampton, we're going to obviously go on to them in a sec, but realistically, I think the guy went to West Ham, 40 odd mil, I think they sold him for. Is it
Pereira or something like that, wasn't it?
It was the holding mid.
No. I know who you're talking about.
40 mil they've sold him for to West Ham, and you think, as I say, that kind of unknown of whether those players are going to be there, it must be difficult for the managers as well.
100%.
Whereas now, I think there's no excuse, and I think you have got to see with all of these teams now.
This period after the international window will be a real indicator of, okay, are these teams just having a bit of a blip at the start of the
'Cause
season?
you can't have a blip for too
long,
and you can get very caught. If you...
Well, that's when you start seeing managers
Mm.
going. Because actually, if you're too cut adrift, like I said, Sellers is in big trouble at Sheffield United because a couple more bad results and he'll get the chop, I reckon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so league position for Ipswich, 20th. They will not be pleased with that.
Nope.
The top 3 highest market value players at Ipswich. You got Leif Davis is valued at 22 mil. He's a really good player.
I'm surprised they kept holding it. There was so many rumours flying around that he was leaving, and I think that was very good to keep holding.
Yeah, 100%. Jacob Greaves, 18 million, and Jaden Philogene is worth 16 mil. So they're big value, high value players. Obviously, they're clubs that have come down from the Prem, so they've managed to keep hold of some of those high value players.
I think they probably, out of all of the teams as well, I think they gave in the Prem they gave it quite a good go, to be fair. But I think there was one eye on maybe getting relegated again, and I don't know if maybe they're. I'm sure there's never conversations around if we go down you stay. But I think they kind of had a setup that was based around there being a potential relegation, having a very, very strong squad for the Championship.
Yeah. Their squad value 179 million, so they're worth even more than Leicester. So again, that value of squad is high. They've got a really good sort of solid squad of players, and they're sitting in 20th. But I do not expect them to be sat there at the end of the season.
I think if we're having a conversation in 10 games time and they're still in that kind of position, there's something gone really wrong.
Yeah,
and I don't think they will. I think there'll be one that does click into place soon. As I say, my main disappointment with them is I thought out of all of them they were the most solid, kind of stable of the teams that came down with probably the least movement, kind of, especially manager wise.
You'd think they'd be
higher.
Yeah. And then the players to watch, I'd made a note of Jack Clark purely down to the fact that he's had a lot of experience in the Championship. He was at Sunderland, did really well there, got his move obviously up to the Prem, and then he's come back down with Ipswich. But he's one that I think will be scoring regularly. He's a really threatening attacking player. And then Hurst is the striker. I know he scored the penalty against Birmingham. It's probably a defining season for him because I think he had some games in the Prem. But now he's sitting in the Championship. This is the season really where he needs to kick on and score some goals as a main striker for them. So I think he will be a key sort of player for the sort of main bulk of the goals they're going to get at the top.
I tend to agree with that. And as you will see as you go through this episode as well, we've got a penchant for an attacker rather than a defender. So it's like the Ballon d'Or.
The thing is, when you're looking at key players, I know defensively you need to have that solidity.
I think these are players to watch. They're the ones who maybe get you off your seat.
Yeah, and the players to watch in terms of the ones that are going to push you up the league. And you need that.
I love Lloyd Jones at Charlton, but he won't get you off your seat.
No.
Well, he will. Actually, he will win the playoff semi-final when he knocks Paul down. But it's not as much. So moving on to the final of the teams that have come down. Quite an interesting one again. Southampton. So obviously, change in the summer. Will Still coming in. I think a very exciting appointment because there's been so much talk about because he's
young,
English, and who is he going to go to in England because he's done such a good job elsewhere. And I thought, to be fair, almost a perfect fit going because as much as there's pressure on going up, there's an expectation because you have got all of the tools at your disposal. So going through the kind of season so far, opening day 2-1 win against Wrexham. 1-1 draw with Ipswich, 2-1 loss to Stoke, and a 2-2 draw with Watford. So I'd say they probably are the more definition of a bit of a mixed bag, really.
Yeah.
Maybe on the slightly more disappointing. As I say, the Ipswich game, we've discussed it previously. The realistic side with that is I don't think that's just a flip of a coin kind of game. The opening game against Wrexham, they left it late.
Yeah. Well, they went 1-0 down.
Yeah. Absolute peach of a free kick. Stunning. Beautiful. But so they once again, I mean, it is difficult, as I say, at this stage because there's only so much you can look into it. But I think it's once again been that mixed bag and slightly underwhelming, really.
Like I say, all three of those relegated sides, you automatically expect them to be right back up the top. Now, it's not always going to work that way. And I think it does take time for the squad to sort of be reassessed, reassembled, and then see how they can sort of start on the new season. But when you're able to hold on to players that are are a caliber above Championship level, but you're still able to keep hold of them, which each one of those clubs, I would say, probably have got a couple of those players that they're playing above the level that they should be.
Yeah.
And then that's where you expect, okay, they should be blowing teams like Wrexham away, to be fair. Wrexham have had the back-to-back promotions, but not long ago were in League Two. And I know they've spent a lot of money, but you'd expect not to be scraping 2-1 wins against them. Rather,
No, and the opening game of the season, the difficulty you always have with that is there, especially when you've got a relegated side against the team that have just been promoted.
They love that, don't they?
Yeah, you'll always have it because you've got literally, and you've got the momentum of one team, and you've got the kind of downfall of another, and it is almost a perfect storm. And I think a lot of the time, actually, it can be the best time to play certain teams.
Yeah. But I guess as well, if we're looking at those fixtures, Wrexham, you'd expect them to win, and they did. Ipswich is a tough game because they're, like I say, we've already said, those two clubs will always be right up the top in the
Stoke have turned into prime Barcelona.
Stoke have been unbelievable at the start of the season, which under Mark Robbins, who I really rate, I think he's a really, really good manager. And I think Stoke might have one of those years where they are a lot harder to beat. They won't necessarily lose those games that in the past they were losing regularly. And Watford, we've played Watford. We weren't massively impressed with them, but again, we played them first game of the season, and they've picked up since, to be fair.
But also as well with Watford, I think even in the game against us, you can see there's a team.
Quality.
If on its day it clicks, there'd be a difficult team to play. They're bloody physical.
Yeah.
They've definitely got some talent in there, and I think with a lot of their players, I would assume, and I don't know, obviously Watford fans would be able to kind of let us know, that I think with Watford, it's probably an inconsistency of a lot of the players rather than a lack of quality. And on their day, if it clicks, they probably can get a victory against a lot of teams.
Well, and also they're going to be another, like every club, one of those clubs where they're waiting for the team to click together. And that's pretty much every team in the league at that very beginning of the season. You're just waiting for a few players to gel, a few of those players to start, getting good connections with other players. And that will come, and it's starting to come because you're seeing they're picking up results slowly now. So
without looking at their transfers, I'm assuming most of them have played together at Udinese at some point, so they probably have some kind of gelling together already.
But yeah, I mean, Southampton, they're sitting in 13th, so they're sort of middle of the road at the moment.
Yeah.
With those results, that's sort of where you'd expect
and
them
to be honest, you could, at the moment, you'd probably win one and you'd be up in the playoff.
Well, 3 points will both boost you up to, even for Charlton, who are sitting 16th, I think. If we win a game, we're then bordering on the playoffs. So that's just how it is at the moment.
You can't really read too much at the table, can you, at this point?
The market values, so their top 3 market value players are Taylor Harwood Bellis, who's the lad who's in the under 21. He's just broken into the England squad, hasn't he? The first team. 22 mil. Finn Azaz, who is striker that they signed from Middlesbrough. He's Irish guy. He looks good, to be fair. He's 16 mil. And Flynn Downs, another quality player, 13 mil. So that's just the top 3. But their squad value, again, almost identical to Ipswich.
It is Ipswich, yeah. Leicester was slightly
172 mil. So again, silly values really when you're thinking about Championship. But nowadays, in the Championship, you're getting players signed for 10, 15, 20 mil. So that's actually, in the grand scheme of things, probably in a few years' time, that's going to be like pretty average.
I think you'll see. I was going to say you'll see, and I think there is. I mean, there's a lot of teams now in the Championship are starting to teeter up to high 90s, early hundreds. I think Norwich might have a value in sitting around the 100 mil mark.
We'll see. Just one like Norwich as a good example. Actually, just one player like Sargent. His value on his own will be like 20 mil or 25. I don't know.
Well, and I think with Sargent, I mean, that's if we're going to go on to a team that is maybe quite a big turning point of their season.
Keeping hold of
him.
Yeah, it could be
top
big.
Scorer in the league already.
Yeah. Players to watch. Southampton have got quite a few, to be fair, but Finn Azaz I looked at as a really good signing, really quite established now at Middlesbrough. He's playing for Republic of Ireland like regularly. And Cameron Archer's the other one. Like he's another striker that will get quite a few goals at that level.
I think he'll be up there in the.
And again, we've gone for attacking style players, but these are the guys you're going to see coming up regularly on the scoreometer. In Gillette Soccer.
And I think
I don't know if that's the right word. Video printer.
That's
That's
it.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that wraps up. I think the three relegated sides nicely.
Yeah.
I think with them, as I say, it's very early to judge. There is maybe highlighting what the Championship is this year. We said it earlier. Teams are gonna you're gonna beat some teams, you're gonna lose teams, and there is gonna be this kind of merry-go-round of teams taking points off each other. I think what you might find this year is maybe that will be a bit more in those three teams coming down. It may not be as nailed on as it has been in years gone by. I think we could see one of the more open, exciting, and
hopefully, I hope we do.
I think,
it's great for the league.
Well, it's like in the Prem. You want, as I say, realistically, this whole merry-go-round of teams going up, teams coming down. It would be nice for some teams to break out of that mould because it does start to get a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
And I think there's maybe a sign that this year in the Championship, could one of those teams, or maybe even two or three, or could it be a complete switch this year? And could we see three teams who go up who none of them were in the Prem last year? And
it's definitely gonna be a really good year for the Championship, and I actually think we're going on to obviously the teams that have come up. I think all three of the teams that have come up are going to be way more competitive than maybe in previous years where they were just flopping out of the league again.
Yeah.
So it probably brings us nicely onto those actually.
Yeah, no, I think so. So let's move into the teams then that came up from League One. So we will start off with Birmingham. Yes, so going through their results, obviously 1-1 draw with Ipswich, 2-1 win against Blackburn, a 1-0 win against Oxford, and then a 2-0 loss against Leicester. Look, they have signed very, very well.
Yeah.
They've signed some. I think they've signed some very, very good players. Some in there that I think maybe. I think the boy who played for Celtic up top for Hashi.
Yeah.
I'm not completely sold on him from what I've seen. I think there's some who maybe Birmingham fans maybe think maybe are slightly better than what they are. But there's no doubting. Look, the start of the season, as I say, we watched that Ipswich game. They look good.
Yeah,
they look really good.
They got unlucky really in that game.
Yeah, they got unlucky. I think they looked really high press, high energy. And I think one of my questions with Birmingham this year was, I think, Chris Davies. I had some questions over him. I think last year wasn't the easiest as a barometer of what he is about, because I thought as much he did very well and broke the records, he had so much at his disposal.
Well, he was expected to walk the league.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, and he did it very well, and he did it in very good fashion. But
that isn't easy either, to be fair.
No,
League Ones are tough.
Well, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at things. You still got to get things clicking together, and you still got to make it work. So, I think having all that money makes it easier. But yeah, I thought a really, really extremely strong start to the season. And then the Leicester game, which I thought they were really underwhelming.
They were poor in that game.
And it kind of maybe was the step back into reality that they needed, maybe. Yeah. I don't know if Chris Davies will look at it that way, because I think there maybe is a bit of an arrogance around I think whenever you get that kind of big money, you walk the league before, and then you come in and you get some really positive results straight away. Maybe you do need a knockback from...
Yeah, I'm looking at those results. Ipswich won all, like I say, I reckon they should have won that game from watching it. So getting a point there is very, very good. Blackburn, an established Championship side, beating them 2-1, good result. I know they're not pulling up trees. They're not,
They're concerning me.
Yeah,
no, an issue. I would say they're probably Birmingham. Sorry, not Birmingham. I don't think they're going to go down. Blackburn, I would say, I think
could be in trouble.
They're probably of my early ones that I thought maybe would be pretty okay. I think they'd be one of my first ones. That I think
a bit ropey.
You know what?
Yeah. Oxford, I would expect Oxford are a team that I had in the bottom three in my predictions. I still think they will be. Losing obviously to Birmingham's not the end of the world for them, and Birmingham would expect to beat Oxford, but they still had to do that. And then the Leicester game, as you said, I think is probably the reality check in terms of, okay, we started well, but playing a team like Leicester will sort of bring you back down to earth a little bit, albeit we played them and we should have beaten.
Yeah. And look, I don't think they weren't awful. They just They didn't look like the Birmingham that I've seen in other games, and I thought there was some players in there who had pretty poor performances, and it felt like the better team won on the day.
I think with Birmingham, when players like Stansfield aren't on it, you notice it a bit more. He was
injured, wasn't he? He wasn't playing. No, he wasn't playing. He injured. I think he was stretchered. No, I'm pretty sure he was stretchered off in the Carabao Cup.
Okay.
Or he was on, whether he was stretchered off or whether he was on crutches the next day or something.
What I just said then. But I will stand by that, to be fair, because when they have their key players, so whether it be Stansfield, whether it's Damari Gray, other players they brought.
I mean, the same thing applies because he wasn't on the pitch, and realistically,
So, like, if they haven't got him on the pitch, then that already shows that maybe they struggle with scoring some goals. Albeit you're coming up against probably one of the best defensive lines in the league in Leicester. And obviously Charlton struggled. We had a lot of chances against Leicester, but we didn't break them down.
And also they will have players who will have a moment of magic. And I think the lad who scored,
scored another banger.
Yeah, he scored another banger, and that's what you will get hit by in this league.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Birmingham, they're sitting in 10th, so that's actually a really solid start. They'll be really pleased with that, I would have thought. And actually, out of those teams, Ipswich and Leicester are two big hitters in that.
I think it's been
they've started really well.
I think I think most Birmingham fans they would be very happy with the start, and I think, to be fair, my view is I think they've started better than I thought they would.
Fair. That's fair. The top 3 highest market value players that I've picked out are Jay Stansfield's worth 11 mil. So
they paid more than that.
They paid more. Yeah. Decreased. Tommy Doyle 10 mil, and Kyogo Furuhashi, which is the boy from Celtic, was not worth 9 mil.
Yeah.
So already, again, although they're a team that have come up from League One, they've got a high value squad. And
I think that's the mad one. That looking at it, I'll let you read.
Their squad value £97 million. So we're looking at a club that, although have just come up from League One, they've spent a lot of money, and even they spent big money in League One. So they've carried that over to the Championship. And they continued to sign.
For a team to come up from League One and in their first season in the Championship and have nearly 100 mil squad is mad. If you had said that, you think like 15, 20 years ago in the Championship.
But to be fair, that's why in my prediction, I put them in the top, just scraping into the top 6, finishing 6th, because they've already got the level of sort of quality player that could actually really excel in the Championship. Stansfield, for example, easily you can drop him into the Championship and he'll score regularly. And I think we'll see that, to be fair.
Do you feel when you look now at teams like a Birmingham coming up, and then you've got the teams who have come down, and there'll be other teams in there that have similar kind of squads, we're almost seeing what I would describe as almost a Premier League too. It's the money that is there. I mean, you've got Championship teams that are outspending European giants. I mean,
well, they're signing players. There's a lot of Championship clubs now are beating La Liga clubs and other.
Well, we didn't get the boy from on final deadline day. There was a boy from Chelsea.
Fofana.
Fofana, and he, by all accounts, had turned down Celtic on a hope of coming to Charlton. We didn't get all the paperwork through in time, but I mean, if you said to me 5 years ago, Charlton are going to beat Celtic to signing someone. I mean,
even if it is a loan,
but
a loan move is still quite big for a player that's playing in it for a.
I think it shows what players think of the Championship nowadays and the quality at which you're playing.
Yeah,
that, as I say, they'd rather go there than some of the European top leagues or the European kind of top big name clubs. So
so you're definitely seeing a transition. Like I was saying before, you're seeing 10, 15, 20, 25 mil being spent in a league that's below the Prem, the division below the Premier League, second tier. So we're seeing like a really high quality division, and that is being shown in the value of the squads. 100%.
No, definitely.
And then the key players that I'd written down, Jay Stansfield for obvious reasons. He was already doing it at Fulham. Went to.
I think it's a big season for him. He had the big Championship season. He had a very good League One campaign last year, albeit a bit stat paddy with the goals because he was a lot on pens.
Yeah.
I find him frustratingly. I think every part of me wants to sometimes knock him, but he is. I mean, he's a bloody hard worker when he's on the ball, and he seems to something with that Birmingham side, and maybe the synergy he's got with the fans. It just seems to work. He's one of those players. You can see why they.
He rattles me as an opposition fan, but if he was playing for me, I'd love him. Yeah, because the way he just throws himself about, he rattles up other fans. fair play to him.
It
Like,
kind of has similar traits, albeit it's management of why we love Nathan Jones.
yeah, like
It's almost
I
like
rate
the
it. I rate it.
pantomime villain, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's
And he'll score goals. He will.
Mm.
He'll easily get 15, I reckon, this season.
I think he'll
I
probably
think he'll
stick
be up
between
there.
10 to 15.
Yeah, I think he'll be
personally,
up there.
but yeah.
And the other two that really impressed me signing wise, obviously they're new to the club this summer. Asai Samuel, he's a player that was really good at QPR, went off to Turkey, played in for Fenerbahce under Mourinho for a while. He's come back, but already looks really quality in the right hands of their defence. And he's one of those right defenders that will push right up there, and he'll be attacking for them. And Damari Gray, I think, was a good signing, although he didn't light it up in Saudi. I think that's where he went off.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And it's difficult because when you go out there, it is a pay packet, so you're sort of playing with other.
Well, I think he was an unknown. He was, of all the signings they made, he was probably the biggest unknown quantity. I thought maybe downing tools might mean that you don't come back the same player, but
yeah,
the games I've seen, he actually looks quite
quality.
He looks
still.
good. He
I
looks
think he's good.
dangerous.
And he was Brum originally, was he?
Yeah.
So he's going back to a club that he knows, and he's probably loved by the fans as well. So
seems like a match made in heaven. If you are going to reboot that kind of coming into England, coming back,
that's the way
to the club that love you,
yeah,
and to a team that also is in a very positive place. It probably is a match made in heaven, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think he's another player that will he will do really well. Still a really quality player, and I think he's probably one to watch for the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. So I think moving on next. Well, before we move on, one of the things I did just want to say, looking through on the kind of analytics side of things, there is 75% of people who watch this video who are not subscribed. Would really appreciate if you can like and subscribe. It really helps us out being able to kind of provide hopefully better quality content kind of going forward in the future, and supporting the channel. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes to do that, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, one other thing as well, I guess, from my side is we really want to get other fans on board. So we're predominantly Charlton based, so we're covering them every week. But we will be putting out more videos Championship based as well. So it's always good to get other fans commenting, getting involved in the conversation, because we've got our opinions, but we're well aware that a lot of people will disagree with us. Yeah. And also it's just nice to get a broader sort of viewer fan base.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, so moving on from there, we will go back to the main part, which is next team up, Wrexham.
Yeah.
So I think probably quite an interesting one. I think when the season started, I was a bit underwhelmed by what they were doing, especially in the transfer window, and then they have kind of just exploded
right at the end.
Yeah, into I think it all kind of started with maybe you had Nathan. I think Nathan Broadhead was probably the first. Okay, they might be spending 6-7 mil, and they just seem to go on a bit of a rampage at that moment of signing players. Start to the season, so the 2-1 loss against Southampton, 3-2 loss against West Brom, 2-2 draw against Sheffield Wednesday, and then finishing it off with a 2-0 win against Millwall.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look over those again, Southampton is a really tough opener,
and they were quite unfortunate. They were unlucky.
Well, I think as we said, they went 1-0 up. So losing that, obviously, not going to be too gutted. 3-2 loss to West Brom. 3-2 sounds like it was a bit of an end-to-end, that sort of game. And then 2-2 with Sheffield Wednesday. They won't be too pleased with that, because Sheffield Wednesday are a team that I think 99% of the league will be hoping to get 3 points against. And the one they'll be delighted with is the 2-0 win against Millwall. No one saw that coming. I didn't.
No.
Well, exactly. At the Den, Millwall are a bloody tough team to play. We've got them coming up this Saturday. And they are a club that will be, if you get 3 points against them, you've done really well this season.
And I think some of their, I think Kiefer Moore, he scored in that game. I think really
going to be huge for them.
Signing,
yeah, huge.
Brilliant signing. I think if I was a Wrexham fan, the only thing I'd maybe be a bit concerned over is in those opening 3 games, 7 goals conceded.
Yeah.
Maybe shows a bit of a kind of soft underbelly. And I think in the Championship, they have definitely got the players, don't get me wrong, they've signed quite well. I mean, as I say, players like Kiefer Moore, they will score, but going into the Championship with maybe the approach of we're going to outscore you, which is strange because that was very much not what they were about last year. Last year, they were let's get a 1-0. I think they must have hit probably a record of the amount, especially towards the end of the season, how many 1-0s.
Yeah.
Closely followed up by Charlton.
How we were, yeah.
He did,
yeah,
but,
true.
I think that's the thing that surprised me the most, is that they just seem like they...
I guess, though, when you're signing players that are a higher... Well, they're trying to bring in players that are of a higher level. They're maybe trying to play a bit more expansive. You've got players that can maybe get their foot on the ball a bit more. And I guess you've got players like Kiefer Moore. They brought in Windass as well up top. They're players that you're going to want to get the ball up to regularly if you can. But yeah, defensively, that could be seen as a weakness for them.
And it's not that they haven't invested, because they have Connor Cody. They signed.
Yeah.
They signed that.
Cody's a good signing.
I can't remember.
Yeah,
left back.
Yeah.
The New Zealand boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I say, I think once again probably I think a lot of Wrexham fans might be a little bit underwhelmed by the start that they've had, albeit...
I don't know what their fans would be expecting this season. It'd be nice to sort of see if anyone...
Well, last season, it seemed like they were all going, okay, we'd be happy if we just consolidate, and they got promoted. I can't see a world where they're not thinking...
They've got to be happy with just consolidating in the league this year. Like, staying up, essentially. That's what we were. That was our...
Like 4 years ago, they're playing, like, National League football.
It's been a meteoric rise.
There's some stage, and I know they go, well, yeah, that was said last year. Look, at some stage you have, and I think actually for the health of the club to a certain extent, I think when a team can absolutely fly through, and they are a slightly different story because they've got the Hollywood money, and the way they've got there maybe isn't that kind of what Luton have done or people like that. But I think there has got to be a stage where you do just at least just have a settling year, and that doesn't mean, look, if they might be still mid-table, might be pushing towards that kind of higher end of things or playoffs. But I think personally, it would be I think it would be a good year finishing.
Look, I think you made a good point previously in one of our other videos, is that Parkinson may well be coming to the end of his sort of period of time at Wrexham, and this could be the season where, as long as he can keep them up, they might be then looking elsewhere next season for someone that can push them on that next step. But it would be a huge achievement for Parkinson to keep them up. Like, that is a really, really hard division, and any club who can come up from League One and in their first season in Championship stay in the division have done really well.
Do you think there's any world where they could get dragged into a relegation?
100%. Yeah, of course. Like, I think pretty much any team apart from those ones we've mentioned, like the relegated sides and maybe a few of the others, Middlesbrough probably be absolutely fine. And there's maybe a top section, top 10, that you wouldn't anticipate seeing them down the bottom. But apart from that, any of those sort of mid-table clubs, and then obviously the teams that have come up, can be dragged into that battle this year. And just because a team started well doesn't mean they're not going to go on a little run of losses. It doesn't take much for games come thick and fast in the Championship. You've got such a high quality of opposition every week. And look at Charlton, for example. We started really well, but all of a sudden we're looking like we're not taking our chance. It's depressing. But we're starting to see that if we don't take your chances, you can quite quickly go on a run of games where you've played well, but you're still not picking up the points.
And if you're playing
you start
playing well, not picking up points, then you start playing bad, you're obviously not going to pick up points, and it can be quite a vicious cycle.
It can snowball, and I think there's quite a few clubs in that division that could happen to quite easily. So yes, of course, like Wrexham, I could see being in a battle. Do I think they will be in the bottom three at the end of the season? No, I think they'll finish just above that line, which they'll be happy with.
Yeah, I think they've signed. I think they've signed some players, and I think the problem with any Wrexhams, and maybe even you will get into Birmingham's as well, I think they maybe sit into it. I think they sometimes sign players where I think, okay, I think you signed a good player, but I think you paid a bit too much money, and I think Broadhead would sit into that for me. But I think with them,
they can get away with paying a bit more.
Well, they can, but I also think they have signed some pretty good players. Yeah, there's a few players they signed where I looked at it and I saw it on my phone and thought, that's
quite well.
Pretty. If they signed for Charlton, I'd be well happy. And yeah, so
well, they're sitting in 15th, so I think they'll be pretty pleased with that generally. With that start to the league. Top three highest market value players, I've got Callum Doyle is 15 mil. So that's a high value player for a team that have just come up from League One. Ben Sheaf 7 mil, and Nathan Broadhead, who we just mentioned, 4.5. So again,
Ben Sheaf was a really good.
Yeah,
that surprised me. They got him.
Yeah, it did me, to be fair, too. There's a couple, I think O'Brien, he brought in from Nottingham Forest as well. It looks really, really good. But their squad value, 58 mil, still quite high value for a club that's just been promoted.
Yeah, it is. And I think with them, I think there is always going to be that polarising comparison between them and Brum, because they've had a very similar story. But I do think with Birmingham that I think they are still extremely different clubs. And I think where I look at Wrexham have been dragged from not nothing, because they were a very historic club, but not far off to kind of this area where I don't think any of their fans ever expected them to go. And I think their growth will take a longer time. I think with Birmingham, they were already
the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, they were already set. Like, they were historically a yo-yo Prem team.
Yeah.
The facilities they've got are incredible. Like the realistic side,
stadiums.
They were just primed for someone like their owners to come in and elevate them. Wrexham weren't. Wrexham have got take away from the pitch. Wrexham have got I think this season they've got one of their stands down that they're rebuilding.
Still a big project.
Yeah, it's a huge project.
But with Birmingham, for example, like Birmingham's like the second or third biggest city in the UK. Yeah. So like their fan base is already massive.
Yeah.
They've got a pedigree, like you said. They've won the League Cup not that long ago. Been in the Prem not that long ago. So yeah, they're a club that are ahead of Wrexham in quite a long way. Obviously Wrexham as well, they're Welsh club technically, so it's like, their fan base is always going to be a bit smaller. Like they're not going to have this monumental fan base. The US element helps, and they're probably getting some like weird US fans. But yeah,
they have this. I've seen
videos
in some social media stuff where you see it. Like, it sits into more the cringy side.
100%. Players to watch. Kiefer Moore, we brought up. He's going to be a really, really important player. He's going to score a lot of goals for them.
I think so.
He's dangerous.
He also suits their kind of style, especially with Parky. You look at over the years of like when they've gone through the divisions, they've always had that kind of big man in the squad. And they had Stephen Fletcher. I just think he suits them really well.
Mullin.
Yeah, of course. He kind of sits into, and they seem to say they like Ollie Palmer's very similar.
Yeah, they're all sort of that similar ilk. O'Brien, he was the boy that they signed from Forest. He's a good signing. I think he had quite a few games for Huddersfield, and then he moved to Forest, and he loaned out quite a few times. But he's a good quality player.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Hardy was the boy they signed from Plymouth, who again
I think scored quite a few goals.
He scored loads for Plymouth.
Yeah.
So again, they're sort of signing players that have got a good sort of pedigree. They've got a good sort of if they haven't played in the Championship, they're a level above that, probably, like Hardy's a player, for example.
They always love, I think, with Wrexham, they've always had a very strong side of signing ex-Prem.
Yeah.
Kind of maybe on the tail end of their career.
McLean
mixed in. McLean was in there. Fletcher, obviously, kind of suits that. Cody, even.
They're sort of like bigger name players that have come into the tail end of their career, they're able to get in. But yeah, I mean, Wrexham, they'll be fairly happy with their start. 15th, I think they can't complain about it.
And I think performance-wise, I wouldn't have any concerns if I was them, and I think they'll probably sit mid-table.
Yeah.
And look, you never know just how. It all depends. I think the unknown quantity with Wrexham and Birmingham is you don't know how big they'll go. Like, say they are having a slightly better season or a slightly worse January, they might absolutely kind of go mad on it. And I think it'll be a very interesting one to see kind of where things go on that. So yeah, let's finish off. I think to finish off the episode, there'll be no one better than Charlton Athletic as their final team. So our season, 1-0 win against Watford. Absolute elation after that.
Yeah.
We then followed up with a 0-0 draw to Bristol City, a 1-0 loss to Leicester, and a 3-1 loss to QPR. Thoughts so far on the season?
Well, obviously that initial 1-0 win was just, like you said, elation. It was one of those where it was, couldn't have gone any better. Not conceding, scoring a late winner.
HMS pissed the league.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You get that initial win and you're like, oh, okay. But we have been brought back down to earth in the next few games after that. Bristol was we carried it on. We did really well. 0-0. We were more than happy with that result there. Really hard fought point. Then we had the game against Leicester, which was a real disappointment because we played so well. Should have won the game. Didn't win. We end up losing, which felt like a bit of a gut punch. And then QPR, we didn't really turn up. No. We battled in that game and we brought the the game back to 1-1, and then obviously we know what happened. They scored a couple of good goals. One really good goal, and then the end one was obviously us pushing forward massively. But yeah, overall we're 16th, sitting 16th in the league. Would you have taken 16th after 4 games? I would.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing is whenever I think the Watford game comes in, we've had I think, and I watch a lot of kind of other YouTubers online, social media, and I think most people are saying they're very impressed with what we've done over the summer.
Yeah, we've signed well.
Clearly, I think we signed well. We've had a kind of narrative of what we're going to go out and get, and that's a mixture of kind of really good kind of League One talent, peppered in with some kind of experienced kind of players that maybe have had Premier League experience or very good Championship experience. I think the interesting thing is, one, we've signed an awful lot of players.
Yeah.
So what is happening on the pitch now, whether you have a few good games, and I think, look, realistically, performance-wise, I would have nothing bad to say about really any of the first 3 games. The one against QPR, I think we were off it. But the other games we did. But I find it crazy that, a bit like how we're chatting about Ipswich, Southampton and Leicester, we're 4 games in.
Yeah.
If we're showing those signs at this stage, it's not going to be perfect. We're not going to have clicked completely yet. But I do find it bizarre sometimes when I see, and I think every fan base maybe has some, but when I see people saying, what an awful window, we haven't done enough.
Yeah.
People losing their mind over the fact we didn't quite get the boy from Chelsea.
Yeah.
And that being the answer. And I'm like, in my opinion, I thought it was weird we were linked to a striker, because I think we've already
got enough
there. And I think given the season as it goes on, I think we will have players there who will really perform.
It's the classic sort of, get really carried away, have a couple of bad results, and all of a sudden it's... Funny enough, Nathan Jones always says it. He says it all the time. He says, we won't get too high, we won't get too low. And he's so right, because actually, if you get really carried away, you're going to be so disappointed when those losses come, which are naturally going to come at this level. Like, we're not going to win every game. And also, put it this way, right? We've got... How many points have we got? 4, right? So 3 wins, a draw, 2 losses. We could have drawn 4 games. And... you'd get people moaning if we'd have drawn 4 games. Oh, we're not scoring, it's not, we're not, being attacking enough. You've got the same amount of points, but so when those wins come, they're going to be really important. And I think all we're missing at the moment is, one is the team completely clicking in terms of that final third, getting the goals. And then 2, it's just finishing off those chances. It's having those missed opportunities, or those little chances where we should have scored, we did score, and that's going to come, because ultimately the longer the season goes on,
that will ebb and flow as the season goes on as well. You'll go through patches, like you hear strikers talking about it all the time, and I know I think Alfie May used to say it quite a lot, and Matty Godden in interviews.
I don't get carried away.
I don't get you will have 5 or 6 games where everything you touch is going in, and you look at, for example, Bristol City in their opening game against Sheffield United, everything they touch went in. And realistic side is, you will have games like this case. You'll also have games where everything is just not quite clicking on that side. Yeah. And I think there's nothing to get carried away with. And if you ask me, I mean, I think what frustrates me, and where maybe I look at it, is if you had looked at where we were a year ago to today, if you would have said to me we would be sitting in 16th in the league, we'll have got 4 points from our opening 4 games, and we'd had the summer that we'd had, I'd have
been buzzing.
I'd have bitten your hand off, and I'd be thinking, well, no, that's dreamland.
We've started League One terribly, like in seasons past. We've started. It's really horrible to go back and think about it, but we've started League One terribly in multiple seasons.
We've ended it and had the middle terribly as well.
We have, but we've also had years where we've started fairly poorly and gone on to be really good. Yeah. So, but that initial 4 games is really a barometer of roughly where you are, but it's in no way of where you're going to be.
Game season.
It's not where you're going to be. Yeah. It's ultimately it's that starting period of the season. You're getting to grips with the league. You're getting used to the sort of types of players you're playing against, and you're seeing whether your team is strong enough to compete. And we definitely are.
We signed 10 players, and they will say as time goes on that will click and it will gel, and you'll have maybe a slightly more. I think we have got a pretty consolidated starting lineup at the moment, but there's a lot of players in that who I think are potentially missing, and I think it'll be very interesting once everything settles in we know Nathan Jones does like to try and keep the starting lineup, if he can, pretty similar.
Yeah.
And how that would all kind of come together. So,
well, we're looking at the league values or the market value of all those teams we've gone through. If we look at Charlton, we'll see the disparity a little bit here. So the top 3 highest market value players, we brought in James Bree. He's worth $2.5 million. Now, obviously, he's a loan, so technically he's not actually a value to the club, but he's worth 2.5. Thomas Kaminsky was 1.8, and Joe Rankin Costello 1.6. And bear in mind, Joe Rankin Costello's had bit part to play so far. Kaminsky, obviously, first team keeper. Squad value 18 mil. So we're going from 170 mil to 80.
Nearly tenfold on your teams.
And even from your Wrexham and Birmingham, who might be a bit of an anomaly from League One, usually you wouldn't be anywhere near that value. We're still less than half the value. Well, we're like 6 times less than Birmingham,
and I think what we've got to remember in the Championship is, I think it will be, from what the owners have said and everything like that, I think we will keep investing, we will still keep growing, and the club will get into a better place as things go on. But at the moment, we are a relatively small fish in a pretty big pond, and you do
takes time for that to build.
So the squad value only paints somewhat of a picture, but it is quite crazy when you look at that and you think what we're actually going up against. And Leicester, for example, who are probably sitting at 9 times the squad value of us. Well, okay, they beat us and it's frustrating, but we gave them a game where we were the ones who deserved to win. And I think that, to me, is more what highlights where things are going well for us is we have come up and we don't look out of place, and there clearly is a disparity between what we've got and what other teams in the league have got.
To be fair, squad value will give you so much, but if you're not clicking as a team and you're not gelling, not worth all that much. Obviously, the management side of things comes massively into it, and I think Jones is a perfect manager to get the best out of the players that he has, and he's brought in quality that we didn't expect to see over the summer. I would say, like, we didn't expect to spend 11 mil-ish. It was around that, wasn't it?
12 million.
That's like unheard of for us as a club. So we're already showing signs that we're investing, and it's a project. It isn't going to happen overnight. So 16th after 4 games, we're going to be.
I still stand by what I wanted at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, all I've wanted from this season is to stay up, because I think we've languished so long in League One, and we had the one season we came up with Bow and went back down. What we need to do is consolidate as a Championship club, and then I hope we have ambitions with these owners, or owners in the future, to carry on pushing on that. And it seems like everyone does have that ambition. Nathan Jones definitely does. But I think the hope is that maybe that will be in the future. But now, this season, anything above the relegation zone, I'm happy. I'd like us to have a more successful season than that. And I think we've shown that we've got the tools there maybe too, but also not to get carried away and think just because we started well, we're going to go on a playoff push.
The way I'm viewing this season, this is a personal way I'm looking at it, is I'm looking at it as we can afford to lose to the likes of Leicester. We can afford to lose if we get a point there or 3 points, unreal, like, great. But those key games are going to be the Oxfords, the Sheffield Wednesdays, the Wrexhams, all those teams that we know are going to be in and around that bottom part of the league. If we can get our results there, that's going to make a huge difference, because that's really going to push us out of that contention for the bottom 3, for example. And whatever else comes is a massive bonus to me. And I'm actually really grateful that that's the way I'm looking at it this year, rather than, like, when you're in League One, you've got to pretty much win the majority of your games to get out of the division. This year, it's not. The pressure is off in the way I see it. And those victories we get against, even like draws against Bristol away, that feels really positive now, doesn't it?
And I suppose we have had that mindset for so many years, being in League One, we were one of the biggest clubs in League One over all of those years. And whenever you came up against teams, you always did expect wins. And I wonder if, I know coming up that you would never have that same mentality, but I do wonder if that maybe is still that going in with an expectation. I don't think that's an unhealthy thing to have.
Well, I do still think, like, we're like we are not out of place in the Championship at all. Like, we're more than capable to do really quite well in the Championship and even get out of it eventually. But like I say, that's going to come with some more investment, because it has to. Like, it's not going to just happen overnight.
No.
But that's kind of what Jones has been saying all along. he's building, isn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got to be happy with the start, and hopefully Millwall. Yeah,
that's all we need. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward
get
to that
them
one.
that we never seem to get, but it would be lovely if we can. So, I think just the last bit to go over with Charlton, the players to watch that we've kind of got down, kind of going through what we've had from the start of the season, but Apter, Carey, and I think Liban. And
Liban might not have been on that list at the
I don't think he would have been.
start.
Well,
I think
before
it
the
is now.
season started, I think 100% he wasn't.
No.
But I just think there's something in there. I think there's definitely bits he needs to fine tune on, and I think we need to see that final product of getting the goals, etc. But I think of all the strikers, but to be fair, of most of the players that have been in the squad, he's probably been the one that has surprised me the most.
I think he could be a really important player for us.
Carey and Apter coming in, I think the what they have kind of having played at Blackpool together and the way they work together is amazing.
I think the reason I noted those two down as well was because they're exciting to watch. Like they're key players in regards to the going forward, but they're also really exciting ones to watch. And I think they're going to give us some really cool moments this season where they're going to get goals. They're going to set up chances, and like you said, their history of both playing for the same club, I think, is just they've gelled really quickly as well, which has been really good to see.
Well, and I think they offer us something that we maybe haven't had for a while. As players as well, so it makes
we've been crying out for that.
When we discussed earlier, we like the realistic side on these. That they're players to watch, they're players to get excited about, and I think both of them have shown really clear signs of being that kind of player, and maybe getting you off your seat. And
I think the only other one I mightn't put in there is Nibs, but we haven't seen enough of him yet.
No.
And I think he's one that could be.
I think he's got the potential to be a player that will. So that kind of finishes off overviewing on things. So I think probably the takeaway from there really is that the teams that have come down have probably been underwhelming so far. And I think the teams that have come up, Charlton included, have done all right and don't look out of place and look like maybe shaking up the league a little bit. And yeah, I think
we will do a sort of bit further down the line, maybe coming up towards Christmas when we're sort of approaching the halfway mark. We'll do another one of these where we maybe look at the overall league, and then we'll assess the teams. That will give us a much better indicator of where people are at with a longer period of games. But during the international break, we thought it'd be good to get something out there and actually looking at those teams that have come down and come up. That's quite an interesting one because they're the ones that a bit unknown, aren't they, when they first come down?
Well, and I think with this format, one of the things is that we can kind of take a slightly closer look, kind of at those clubs, and just have a bit of a chat in a bit more detail. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. And as I say, we'll be looking probably in the next kind of few weeks or so to have another kind of one of these as well. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.